development and prosperity of our region and all its citizens. This is not unique even to the Caribbean, and every continent has now followed the same trend, from the EU to the ASEAN group, Mercosur, the Pacific group of states, and so on. This is all in recognition that no one country can stand alone in a globalized world. A study that was done in Europe for the European Parliament showed that between the years 2010 and 2018, their free movement regime did not displace nationals from employment, nor did it cause an increase in unemployment in any of the destination countries. So contrary to the UNC perception, records actually show that unemployment decreases within national populations when there's a regional free movement regime. Now, in any union, member states agree on a course of action and undertake to first apply decisions that were made by their heads of government administratively, and then secondly, to amend the necessary national legislation in each jurisdiction. In the case of the free movement regime for CARICOM, heads of government agreed to a period of 6 months for this process. At the meetings of the Conference of Heads of Government, which took place in 2006 and 2007, and then again in 2018, our prime ministers, our heads of governments, agreed to expand the list of categories eligible for free movement, and a chart, I will present you a chart which shows the number of member states that have passed this legislation to this point. Now, I saw recently Senator Wade Mark and one of his colleagues attempting to mislead the population by stating that only Jamaica had passed all 10 of the agreed categories for skilled persons to move across the region. That is absolutely untrue. And as you can see, many countries have passed 10 categories, which we are now seeking to do, and Barbados has actually passed 12 categories into their legislation. So just to debunk some of the UNC myths on this very fundamental topic. Now, in amending the legislation, the government is seeking to achieve a number of important things. Number one, to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago meets our treaty obligations and that we are compliant with the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, to which we are signatories. Also, we must expand opportunities for our people, Trinidad and Tobago nationals, to seek employment and to live in participating CARICOM member states. We, our people, will now have access to a larger market for employment, investment, and business opportunities. Our skilled people will now have larger doors to move through and to take full advantage of a regional single economy and market. Also, we will be rectifying an asymmetry whereby Trinidad and Tobago nationals have been at a disadvantage to other member states, as our nationals have been unable to, our country has been unable to accept applications for skills certificates in a number of additional categories until we've had legislation to do so. We are now putting that legislation in place, which will empower our citizens to move and operate in 10 categories as opposed to 5. This is good news for us. The legislation amendments also seek to support the repeated calls from our private sector locally and regionally for free and uninhibited movement so that skills can flow to where they are needed most in order for our businesses to grow and to be competitive on the global scale. And the legislation also provides a pull factor for our global diaspora, those who wish to come home, to return to the regional economy and to contribute to our collective prosperity with their wealth of skills, experience, and investment capital. And finally, the amendments really seek to put the necessary systems in place for us to collect revenue and improve administrative processes, because there are specific penalties as well for those who might wish to abuse the system, and these penalties will act as a deterrent. So what we are talking about is genuine progress for Trinidad and Tobago and also for the wider Caribbean region. These are very important realities, and this is what the amendment seeks to do. So I just gave 7 areas in which the legislation, the amendments, will assist the people of Trinidad and Tobago. These are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. I will now address some very unfortunate mischief and misinformation and some degree of scaremongering that has been conducted by the opposition UNC on this very fundamental topic. See, currently there's a requirement for a period of 5 continuous years in order to qualify for residency in Trinidad and Tobago. And I saw talks of voter padding and all sorts of other extraneous issues. Classic UNC scaremongering. None of it is relevant to the amendments that are before the Senate. None of what they've said is relevant to the issue of anything related to voter padding in the year 2022. That is a complete and total red herring in their usual pattern of scaremongering. And in fact, the 5 available categories have been in place since 2009. So we've had several administrations, several governments that, if the UNC's theory had any weight, could have applied this to some nefarious purposes, but there's been no evidence of that whatsoever. The fact of the matter is, these scare tactics seek to detract from a very important vision that this region has had for many years and which is slowly coming into realization. One market, one economy, one CARICOM, which benefits all of us. This is the only way in which our country, our countries, and our region can survive in the modern age, can be competitive in the modern age, and can make best use of all our skills, all our resources, and all our people. There were also references to some crazy theory of migrant caravans from across CARICOM coming to Trinidad and Tobago. And again, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, these amendments increasing our categories of skills that can be recognized, certified, and that can empower our nationals will assist our citizens who want to move and work within the CARICOM region, so that we have good examples of our nationals going to Guyana, to Barbados, to Jamaica, to many other jurisdictions, highly skilled nationals, and serving the regional economy and making money for their families and contributing to CARICOM. There will be more opportunities for that now as opposed to less. And yes, there's the issue of reciprocity, where we will now be joining other countries in offering these 10, recognizing these 10 categories. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That is Trinidad and Tobago doing its part for the realization of a dream that has been long in coming, and the time is right for us to take the next step now. We've had so many nationals that have already taken advantage of the 5 categories, and now the doors will be opened to even more of our nationals. The same thing has happened in Europe. We can follow the pattern. There was scaremongering across there. There were people like Nigel Farage and others who used the issue of scare tactics to try to distract European nationals from the reality that coming together, forming a single European market and economy will be good for all the people of Europe. Those scare tactics have been proven irrelevant. In fact, studies have shown that economies have grown, people have benefited. The private sector, right down to the level of the individual, the sole trader, has benefited as the regional economy grew in Europe. Why should we be denied these benefits here within CARICOM? In fact, we will not be denied these benefits. The single market and economy is all around us. It's in our regional cricket teams. It's in our regional competitions. It's in all of us working together to maintain a zone of peace within the Caribbean Sea. It's in supporting our sovereign borders. It's in us working together, me and my colleagues in CARICOM, on the post-Cotonou agreement. It's in working together to deal with narco-trafficking and human trafficking. It's with our region working with the ACS and with CELAC and with SECA. It's in the Caribbean Examinations Council. It's about offering visitors a broad tourism product. You can go to Oystins on a Friday and have a bacon shark in Maracas on a Sunday if you visit our region. That's the vision that we're offering. And let me tell you something, my friends. It is too late to turn back now. It is too dangerous not to move forward with the single market and economy. The survival of all of us is dependent on the CSME. The CSME is about multiplying our potential whilst not multiplying our vulnerabilities. It took so many years for the European Union to become a single market. And as I said, there were those xenophobic attempts at fear-mongering. Now the Europeans actually have a parliament. We don't have a Caribbean parliament as yet. But the European Parliament exists where each country votes to send elected officials to represent their nations at the regional parliament. The African Union has the same thing. On the example of Europe, they had the objective of a single market. You know, since when? Since 1957 with the European Economic Community. And since 1999, they've had their own currency, the euro. And in 2 years after that, the euro became the most powerful currency above the US dollar, and it has generally stayed there with its strength. And since 1993, the Europeans launched their own single market with the Maastricht Treaty of 1992, 3 decades ago. And since then, they've made further progress with the Treaty of Amsterdam in 1997, with the Schengen Agreement, which has abolished physical barriers around free movement within Europe. And this is seen as a European success. This is a success story. But why should we deny ourselves elements of that same success? We in this region, who were divided by history, by the cruel hand of colonialism, are we unworthy of similar progress? Must we always be victims of the mentality of the Wade Marks of this society, their level of thinking and analysis? Must we allow the rest of CARICOM even to move forward and Trinidad and Tobago to be left behind? You know, sometimes people criticize Jamaica and Bahamas and one or two others for thinking, well, for encouraging a thinking that may not be sufficiently CARICOM oriented. I've heard that type of talk. But it's sad to say that right here, we have to respond. Right here at home, we have to respond to this fringe minority who may not have woken up from their insular slumber. Right here in Trinidad and Tobago, the economic benefits will certainly outweigh any of the fear-mongering that folks are seeking to put before members of the public. So we've mentioned examples of other regions. I'm not going to dwell any further on that. But the key point is our economy, as well as other economies, will grow. And this is the UNC's insularity and protectionist rhetoric will not be allowed to inhibit this country from moving forward. I remember there were people in France saying, people from Malta will come here and take away their jobs, come to France and take away their jobs. Hasn't happened. There were fringe elements in Germany saying that people from Slovakia would come to fill their country in caravans of migrants. That didn't happen. There were people arguing they will come to vote in our local elections because you can vote anywhere in Europe as a European citizen. People in Spain saying that a single economy would be the end of the Spanish economy, when in fact it was a big part of the solution for the Spanish economy. The rhetoric we are hearing is not new, my friends. That card has been played by all manner of pseudo-nationalists and fringe elements, obstructors of regional unity and fighters against economic progress. Those who want to say anything just in the hope that things remain the same. That's the definition of insanity. But even within the UNC rhetoric, there's some further madness. There's a kind of schizophrenic fear-mongering. Because on one hand, they want to tell us that unemployment is sky high and the economy is in tatters, and they love to praise other countries like Barbados and Guyana incessantly. And then at the same time, they're saying that with the single market and economy, hordes of migrants from within CARICOM will flood to TNT for jobs. Not flooding to Barbados or Guyana. But the message to Senator Mark and his friends is that is not how a free market works. That's not how a single market works at all. That is not how it operates. And that's not how the CSME operates. It is sad that in the year 2022, I have to educate and inform a UNC senator on the basics of the CSME. And this is not PhD level, my friends. This is elementary. This is standard 1 level. And the lesson to the thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago: don't listen to the anti-regionalists who want to take us back to the past, who want to keep us apart. Our very survival and the future of CARICOM is in our hands. Our survival, our future is in CARICOM. CARICOM is not the problem. It is the solution to the problem. So in conclusion, success with full implementation of the CARICOM single market and economy is not an option for us to deliberate on. It is an imperative. It is how we repay the faith that our forefathers or foreparents had in us. It is how we repay the faith that the founders of CARICOM, including former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, it's how we repay the faith that they had in all of us. We've heard about the Brexit mentality and all those other anti-regional approaches. That's similar to what Wademark and the UNC have been pushing with their latest round of fear-mongering and baseless innuendo. This government and all the thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago will have no part of that. And I want to just end these comments with a quote from one of my very favorite calypso icons, the legendary David Michael Rudder, in his iconic calypso, Rally Round the West Indies. And I'll just share a few lines. This is not just cricket. This thing goes beyond the boundary. It is up to you and me to make sure that they fail. Soon we must take a side or be lost in the rubble, in a divided world that don't need islands no more. Are we doomed to forever be at somebody's mercy? Little keys can open doors. My friends, we are CARICOM, and CARICOM is us. We must and we shall implement the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and all of us will benefit. I thank you, and I would now be pleased to receive any questions you may wish to pose at this time.
Minister, we have a first question from Kim Budram.
Please proceed, Ms. Budram.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, all. Minister, I hope this was not lost in transmission. I'm going to ask you to revisit something that was stated by the opposition in the Parliament on this bill. And, there was a sort of implication that the government might be doing this not only at a time when the population is strained for employment under a number of conditions, but that it may be seeking votes in the future. I would like to ask you to specifically address that issue that was raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did reference significantly both elements, but your question is an opportunity to examine it further. You raised 2 points, which again are very familiar to us who pay attention to international developments. That rhetoric is familiar rhetoric. On the issue of the time is not right for us now to move forward with the CSME because of the economy is not in perfect condition. That is the whole point of a single market and economy. Recognizing that as small, fragile, vulnerable societies, we need to come together, or private sector or societies or islands need to work together to build a regional economy and a regional market which will be more competitive on the global scale. And that's the vision of the CSME. We each have strengths. We each have capacities that when we put them together, and we've been doing that despite that rhetoric, and we've been reaping the results. Trinidad and Tobago has been performing very well in that agenda. Our private sector, we've just deployed 5 skills categories so far. Our citizens have been taking advantage of those 5 categories, and I guarantee you, as we open up to 5 more categories, more and more of our citizens are innovative, bright, well-educated, passionate, and energetic citizens will be put on a stronger footing to take advantage of regional opportunities and to move throughout our region because there are welcoming arms across CARICOM. We cannot seek to do that while at the same time folding our arms and saying we want an uneven regional playing field. That is completely against the spirit of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, to which all of our leaders, and we've had UNC prime ministers in the past who are very much committed and bound by the revised treaty, just as we've had PNM prime ministers. And I can tell you on behalf of the current prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago that Trinidad and Tobago will fulfill its obligations. Now let's talk about this red herring about voter padding. These amendments have nothing to do with voter padding or the capacity of any CARICOM national to vote in Trinidad and Tobago. That is not being amended within this amendment bill that is before the Senate. And the reality is, and all you have to do is call the EBC all Wade, well, that wouldn't be in his interest. But if he wanted to get the facts on this matter and to realize the talk of voter padding is just intellectual rhetoric, just intellectual padding for him, all he had to do is call the EBC to find out what are the requirements for someone to become a voter in Trinidad and Tobago. And it has nothing to do with a 1-year skills certificate requirement. It has nothing to do with the 10 categories that we are mobilizing. The requirements for voting in Trinidad and Tobago occurs over a much longer time frame. There's a 5-year residency requirement that didn't arise yesterday, that has been in place for years, even when the UNC was in power. And even when the UNC was in power, there were 5 categories for nationals to come to Trinidad and Tobago with their skills certificate. I didn't hear any talk of CARICOM voter padding then. So again, this is just convenient. This is not connected to reality at all. Their rhetoric is not connected to reality, and it is seeking to distract from the progress, the meaningful progress that this country and our economy is poised to make. If this was dangerous to the economy in any way, why would the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association be so passionate in endorsing these amendments? Why would the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which is completely tied and dependent on our collective success, be so strong in the endorsement of these amendments? The answer is very simple. We all stand to benefit. Every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago stands to benefit from these amendments. And the region as a whole, by adding Trinidad and Tobago to that long list of countries that already recognizes the 10 categories, will elevate and empower all of us and help make CARICOM even more of a factor to reckon with on the global scale.
Minister, we next have Suan Wayal.
Please proceed, Suan.
Hi, good morning. This is Suan Wayal from UCPnews.com.
Good morning.
And wanted to ask just a couple questions through the CSME. What skills do you think that Trinidad and Tobago need most at this time, and what could be afforded by the other islands from the categories identified? And apart from legislation, how is Trinidad and Tobago preparing for the possible transition? Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of what skills do we need all skills. In fact, we have many skills here in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to invite you to look at the economy not just on a national level, but on a regional level. I'll give an example in terms of food security, and we see all sorts of rumblings now and then, and some very genuine, good recommendations in terms of empowering and developing our food security in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of work taking place on this matter, but it's not just on a national level. It's on a regional level. Within CARICOM, we have a quasi-cabinet. And guess who has the lead on agriculture and food security within that quasi-cabinet? It's our friends in Guyana. We've been working very closely with them in advancing the regional agenda on food security. And in that framework, which we are contributing to, I was in Belize just a couple weeks ago, side by side with colleagues, contributing to this agenda. Trinidad and Tobago has an important role to play. We have skills here, but those skills can't just be limited to Trinidad and Tobago. They have to be extended to Guyana, to Barbados, to Jamaica, and to all the other jurisdictions, to Suriname as well. And we've been doing that in expanding our recognition of the skills categories. It will simply empower more of our citizens to be operating on more of a level playing field, so that in a wider range of categories, they can operate, work, and live wherever in the regional economy the market will demand and pull their services. It has been happening. We just want it to happen at a higher level and including more of our citizens. So the UNC wants to make it seem that this is somehow putting our people at a disadvantage, when in fact the reality is the exact opposite. we've been proving the advantage that our citizens can have, and also that our businesses, from the sole trader right up to the larger corporations, can have in operating within a regional economy. That's the vision. It's not just my vision. It's a vision that has been in place since 2001 and even before that, right back to the signatory of the original Treaty of Chaguaramas. And just look at the name of Chaguaramas. That's right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And yet in the year 2022, we have people resisting the regional agenda and fighting against it. That's very disappointing to me as a Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. And there's a reason our Prime Minister implemented such a ministry. And it's a bit unique because we're not just about foreign affairs. We're also specifically about CARICOM affairs. And that's a responsibility I take very seriously. The staff of the ministry takes very seriously, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the right-thinking citizens, take very seriously as well. Are there any more in the lineup? So, my friends,
we have one more question
Okay.
from Suan Whale, Minister.
Certainly. If it's a follow-up, I'm very open to that as well.
Well, it's not exactly a follow-up. It's actually in an unrelated matter. We have reports that there's one particular individual who has volunteered to fight in the Ukraine war. And he's a national of Trinidad and Tobago. And we just wanted to find out your thoughts on that as Minister of Foreign Affairs as well.
Yes. I've seen a particular media report. In fact, I saw something on Facebook. And we are currently seeking some further information on this initiative, this development. What I saw was very disturbing to me, cast against the backdrop that we have nationals of this country in the past who've went overseas as mercenaries to fight wars in other jurisdictions. And that is currently an international conundrum and nightmare for some of these individuals and the host countries. I don't want to say too much more on this topic. I certainly will not be saying anything to encourage that type of, potential grandstanding. But all I can do is sound a note of caution for the good sense, the welfare, and the physical well-being of all our nationals, and encourage persons not to take bad example from those who might wish to be reckless, who might wish to be on some sort of populist agenda, which could put themselves and even our national reputation in jeopardy. So the direct answer to your question is we are seeking some further information on this potential development. Nothing that I've heard is encouraging or would suggest that this is something that our citizens should applaud or encourage or motivate in any way, shape, or form.
And that's it for questions, Minister.
Thank you very much. I hope we've put to rest some of the empty rhetoric and the fear-mongering of Senator Mark and his friends. But this has also been an opportunity to remind our people, our thinking citizens, of the importance of the CARICOM single market and economy and the potential within that for all of us in this country and region. I thank you.
TDT News, committed, accurate, relevant.